Hi again. This will be another video on Uiview Animate and animating things with UIKit. In the last video we made some boxes and they slide up the screen, and they, it works pretty good. But we could add a little more character to this, right? So this is okay. Doesn't have a lot of character though, right? So I want to make this like a little more lively, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our code here, and you can see this is my for loop that generates a box. Essentially, this first half of the code here creates a box, adds it as a subview. Essentially we're configuring the box. And then we calculate a couple things, like we calculate a value for the target Y position that we want to move the box to, and then we calculate a delay time for each box, right? So let's keep all that. And this last section here is where we, implement the animation. So this is where we throw the animation in. And this closes off our for loop. So don't lose that curly brace there. So this right here, I want to change. I'm actually just going to delete it, right? Okay. And what I want to do is I'm going to use one of these other animate options. So I'm going to choose Uiview Animate. And there's, animate with delay, animate with interval, with time interval with animations, completion block. And then there's one here, animate keyframes. And then there's another one here. It's kind of hard to see, but it says animate with duration, time interval, delay, using, and then this should say something like using spring, right? So let's choose that one. Yeah, using spring with damping, right? Okay, so let's put the time interval here as 1 second. Let's make it, actually, we're going to make this 1.5 seconds. And then we'll do our delay here, and we'll make this the same delay that we used before. Okay, so we'll just take our delay variable and plug it in. We can change the number here later, right, if we decide that the delay is too short or too long. And then we come to a new property here that says using spring with damping. Okay. So this creates kind of an elastic animation, and the elastic animation has a couple numbers that determine like how it works, okay? And it's kind of based on like a mathematical model for a spring, okay? So springs have a couple features, right? They have a springiness or an elasticity, which is this first number. So let's give this a value. I think you can use pretty much anything for this value. I'll just start off with the number 0.5, right? And then this initial spring velocity. So this is like, does the object start from a dead stop and then the spring has to pull it? Or is it already moving when the spring is pulling at it, okay? Right? Or does it already have some velocity, right? So velocity is like how fast it's moving, okay? I'm going to put a 0 in for initial velocity, okay? And then we've got our options here, right? So this is the same options that we had before. So we can just replace those with a empty array. And then we've got animation, and this is our animation block. So let's hit return. And then the code in here, we can say box.center. This is just what we had before. Center y equals y. And then box.alpha equals 1, right? And that'll make our alpha, change the alpha up to 1. I didn't do the alpha on this one. I forgot if we wanted them to fade in, right? Why don't we do this? We'll say box.alpha equals 0, and then now we can animate the alpha. And then there's completion, right? So we can leave this as nil again, okay? So here's our spring animation, right? Let's give it a try and see what it looks like. So I'll test it. So now you can see the boxes, they kind of move up and they kind of have this bouncy kind of springiness, right? So, and that doesn't look too bad, but it's kind of a little weird to me that they kind of move a little too slow at the end. I want them to kind of be a little tighter, right? So we can change the nature of the spring by changing the values here and here, okay? And the time also. So if we make the time shorter, then this, the animation, the whole animation will have to go faster, so it'll be a little snappier. What if I make this 1 second, right, instead of 1.5 seconds? right? So it runs a little faster this time, right? What if we, it seems pretty springy, pretty bouncy, right? What if we, decrease the spring with damping, right? So what if we say, we make this like 0.2 instead of 0.5, right? So this will be like the damping on the spring will be less. Right, so we got less dampening, so the spring is kind of bouncier, right? It's kind of has a lot more motion to it, right? What if we increase this number? So instead of 0.2, before it was 0.5 and we moved it down to 0.2. What if we increased it to 0.8, right? Yeah, you can see here it just goes a little bit past and then comes down, so there's a lot more damping. It looks like the object's kind of moving through, like a liquid or something, rather than free and kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but kind of more bouncy, right? So anyway, so there we go. And then, we could also change the initial velocity, right? So this will determine like how fast the object is moving when it begins, right? And you can play with that number. So I'll leave that one for you to experiment with. But anyway, changing the number here, here, and here will change the effect, right? And you can get a wide range of effects. And these are always going to be kind of elastic or spring-like, motion, right? So anyway, thanks for watching. And then I hope that was interesting and helpful.